All right, good morning. The subcommittee will come to order. Starting out, I want to make sure that we stipulate that the chair may declare recess at any time, which we already know we will need to utilize. I want to welcome the witnesses here today to discuss the Chapter 35 issues that have plagued VA education benefits for the last several months. And while I am not the chairman of this specific subcommittee, I am the chairman of the Subcommittee on Technology Modernization, as well as a member of this subcommittee. And a top priority of mine is ensuring VA's technology works for veterans, so there's significant overlap with what we are talking about today. The VA, of course, was created to provide world-class services to the veterans that they serve and that our country owes a debt of gratitude to. Unfortunately, VA has fallen short of providing these services and that promise to veterans and their families through delays in processing a subset of education benefits. This hearing today will review how payment failures in the Department of Veteran Affairs' Digital GI Bill program originated. Since August, estimates are up to 75,000 children or spouses of a veteran who has died, is missing, or have a permanent and total service-connected disability paid through the Dependents Education Assistance Program have had a delay in payments. This is not money that goes to the institution, like the post-9/11 GI Bill. Instead, the benefit goes directly to the student, who then uses it to pay the institution and cover their expenses. Because of the payment delays, this subcommittee has heard horror stories about students not being able to make ends meet because of VA's mistake and jeopardize their enrollment in their college education. While I recognize that the situation was made worse by the government shutdown, VA has failed students by not paying them on time and refusing to communicate with the stakeholders along the way. This hearing today isn't about politics or partisan differences and games. It's about getting to the bottom of how this decision was made, who made the decision, who's at fault, and how we can move forward appropriately so that we can have proper authentication for Chapter 35 benefit cases. Ms. Devlin, while you have only been at the VA a few months, and you and Mr. Smith have overseen this data reconciliation and thousands of claims that were not processed on time. Because of that, I expect the days of the status quo to end, and the VA is holding those responsible for this failure accountable because the subcommittee plans to exercise that responsibility. Today, we will also examine how many students utilizing VA education programs were impacted. These delays have a real-world impact for Dependents Education Assistance and post-9/11 GI Bill participants. Military-connected students shouldn't be put in financial hardship due to VA's technology and processes falling short on delivering for our veterans. While I'm new to Congress, I understand that this is at least the fourth time since the post-9/11 GI Bill was implemented that significant payment delays because of IT issues have impacted checks going out to veterans and other beneficiaries. If you're a student, lives in my district or anywhere else in this country, and you are facing delays in education payments from VA, please contact my office or this subcommittee to help work through your issues. My door is always open to help fellow veterans, and we have to make sure we're working through this backlog. I expect this to be a productive hearing today. Hope to understand who is at fault for this crisis and who at VA will be taking accountability so that we can ensure this doesn't happen again. And I'll yield to the ranking member for his opening remarks as well.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for pinch hitting with this subcommittee today, and thank you to our witnesses for joining. This is a critically overdue hearing today, and in all my years on this subcommittee, I've never felt as frustrated as I do at this moment. And one of the points of frustration is the request that I've made directly to expect a Senate-confirmed appointee to testify today, someone who can provide answers but also take responsibility for the failure to pay out Chapter 35 benefits on time. We don't have that. While I recognize that VBA doesn't have a confirmed undersecretary, it's abundantly clear from VA's stonewalling to multiple congressional inquiries and its written testimony that this administration has no intention of taking responsibility and instead is trying to shift our attention and the blame onto the previous administration. Our veterans and VA beneficiaries deserve a lot better. Forget about pointing fingers. VA responsibility is to serve veterans. When mistakes or unexpected developments occur, VA also has a responsibility to communicate with those same veterans. And veterans expect VA to work with Congress to solve the problem. As I've always said on this subcommittee, congressional oversight is important regardless of who is in the White House, which is why, Mr. Chairman, we and our veterans have come to expect public and involved supervision of what VA is doing or not doing, no matter which administration is in charge. We have not had that. In fact, in all my years on this committee, I've never experienced this level of stonewalling before. The The Trump administration and its VA have deliberately failed to communicate with Congress, and more importantly, the affected beneficiaries, as they try to hide the mess that's been months in the making. VA has issued little to no public acknowledgement for months about the 75,000 beneficiaries whose benefits have been delayed. There have been minimal communications for months to schools and beneficiaries themselves. And there's been zero communication with Congress, unless you can count the letter that we received back that didn't answer our questions at 5:45 yesterday. 3 letters that were sent from members of this committee that went unanswered for a month and a half. In fact, VA officials refused to formally acknowledge this problem until a briefing on December 5th. That's December 5th. VA knew in September that it had a problem because they sent requirements to Accenture to try to address the backlog. It took 4 months between this problem being identified and Congress being updated. 4 months, during which tens of thousands of beneficiaries were left without any information. There's just no excuse for an egregious lack of communication around an issue that affects so many veterans. Any reasonable person would conclude that a deliberate political decision was made to cut off communications with Congress and veterans to avoid accountability and to hide the problem. VA continues to refer to the problem simply as a tech issue or a glitch, yet contradicts itself in written testimony. Now, I'm glad that the ranking member of the Tech Mod Subcommittee, Ms. Baczynski, could join us today, along with Mr. Barrett, to explore that issue. A glitch implies a malfunction. There was no glitch. The software worked as expected. VA's planning factors and assumptions were wrong. VA failed to validate the assumptions and failed to react when things did not go as planned. Now, the real glitch, the real malfunction here is VA's unprecedented failure to communicate with beneficiaries, the public, and Congress. This administration and its VA can try to misdirect our attention by blaming the previous administration, but let's do a quick review. The decision to conduct data reconciliation by hand in 2024 was due to VA cultural distrust of automation and the accuracy of the information in the databases. This has not changed between administrations. Now, regardless of how we got here, Secretary Collins' VA was in charge in August when things began to spiral, and throughout the last few months of ignoring veteran and congressional inquiries. For example, the decision to shift to automate some of the claims reconciliation and processing only occurred once VA was late on 75,000 claims and was looking for any possible help. So regardless of what the previous administration set forth, VA could and should have tested the data reconciliation process to validate the assumptions on the time that it would take. June or July would have been great for that to occur. The Trump VA can point to planning that took place in December 2024, but they came in and continued that plan. The absence of decision-making or oversight for 9 months is just as damning as the original planning. VA failed to follow guidance from the White House on who to furlough during the government shutdown. Government employees working on funded programs like these mandatory VA education benefits were direct to work. Yet the information technology staff needed to test and field the automation updates were furloughed and not brought back until the day before the shutdown ended. Worst of all, this administration made the decision not to communicate with veterans, families, and survivors impacted for 4 months. People in our districts were in the dark about what was going on and why their benefits were not getting paid. One of my constituents from Manchester contacted our office and said, quote, "Due to an error with the VA benefit system, I have not received my education benefits so far this semester. The call-in line that I and the University of New Hampshire Veterans Center staff use to resolve such issues has been deactivated for the duration of the shutdown, leaving me dead in the water. My wife's salary has so far covered our rent and food, but we're at risk of losing childcare for my son due to non-payment as well as having to miss car payments," end quote. The financial stress put on him and his family is evident. It's also unacceptable. We've been elected to advocate on behalf of our constituents, yet VA refuses to do its most basic job and ignores our inquiries for months. I think we all agree that veterans and their families and their survivors deserve so much better, and we deserve bipartisan advocacy on their behalf when government fails to uphold its promise and deliver the benefits they've earned. The only question is, will we in Congress hold the administration, like any other administration, responsible for fulfilling that promise? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you, Ranking Member Pappas. In accordance with committee rules, I ask unanimous consent that Representative Baczynski from Illinois be permitted to participate in today's subcommittee hearing, and without objection, it is so ordered. With that, we are going to move on to our witnesses. Our first witness is Ms. Margarita Devlin, Acting Principal Deputy Undersecretary for Benefits, Veteran Benefits Administration at the Department of Veteran Affairs. Did I get that all correct? It's a lot to put on a business card. Accompanying Ms. Devlin is Mr. Kenneth Smith, Executive Director at Education Services, Veteran Benefits Administration at the Department of Veteran Affairs. And our third witness is Mr. Justin Park, Managing Director, Digital GI Bill Program Manager for Accenture Federal Services. Thank you all for being here. I ask the witnesses on our first panel to please stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you, and let the record reflect that the witnesses have answered in the affirmative. Ms. Devlin, you are now recognized for 5 minutes to deliver your testimony on behalf of the Department of Veteran Affairs.
Thank you, Chairman Barrett, Ranking Member Pappas, and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. I'm joined by Mr. Kenneth Smith, Executive Director for Education Service. I appreciate the chance to speak candidly about the challenges we faced with the implementation of Release 8 of the Digital GI Bill platform, particularly its impact on Chapter 35 education benefits. In August 2025, VA completed a major milestone, the final transition from our 50-year-old legacy benefits delivery network, or BDN, to the modern digital GI Bill system. This release migrated beneficiaries and payments for Chapters 35, 30, and 1606. The core migration was technically successful. However, there were design challenges. Specifically, a 2024 decision required manual reconciliation of claims for beneficiaries converted from BDN. This was intended to reduce improper payments, but in practice, it dramatically increased processing time. Unfortunately, the timing of the release, driven by the need to decommission BDN before the end of the fiscal year, meant we could not delay implementation to address the issue. Chapter 35 students were most severely impacted. While they represent about 24% of GI Bill beneficiaries, they made up the majority of pending claims. VA could not delay DGIB Release 8 because of the need to decommission BDN by the end of the fiscal year. This enabled automation and saved approximately $25 million. Delays in system readiness, specifically the inability to support Chapter 35 until the end of March, based on previous decisions to change the DGIB program schedule, resulted in a compressed testing period for Chapter 35 and required VA to process claims in BDN that then required conversion in August. The timeframe limited the ability to mitigate issues in advance and reduce the volume of claims requiring manual reconciliation. Several factors compounded those delays. First, the manual reconciliation requirement was a business decision, not a technical failure, but it more than doubled the time needed to process many claims. Second, testing was compressed due to delays in partner system readiness and the looming BDN shutdown. Third, a lack of enterprise governance in 2024 meant critical decisions weren't elevated for broader risk assessment. And finally, we saw a 19% surge in Chapter 35 claims, likely linked to increased disability decisions following the PACT Act. When the system went live in August, we quickly identified missing functionality in the Verify My Enrollment tool for Chapter 35 students. We waived the attendance verification requirement to ensure students could still receive payments and communicated this broadly to students, schools, and Congress. We also faced challenges during the lapse in appropriations. Under our contingency plan, education call center staff were furloughed because they do not establish protective dates for claims of entitlement and payment. While this was consistent with our criteria for protecting life and property that has been in place since 2013, we recognize the impact this had on students and schools trying to get information. We're conducting an after-action review to assess which positions should be considered essential in future contingency planning. To mitigate the impact of the delays, we took several steps. We validated automation rules to speed up processing where reconciliation wasn't needed. We directed claims processors to trust prior entitlement calculations to reduce manual work. We developed and tested an automation solution to handle reconciliations. And although the lapse in appropriations delayed its deployment, we launched it on November 15th. It resolved issues for over 5,000 students and enabled more than 1,100 payments. And finally, we recalled furloughed staff, streamlining policies to reduce the burden on frontline processors, and re-implemented overtime once the appropriations bill was signed into law. Today, our automation rules can now process enrollments for returning Chapter 35 students on the same day. We continue to waive the verification requirement and are working on a change management strategy to ensure students update their contact information for the most convenient verification experience. Looking ahead, we've taken several key steps to prevent such reoccurrence. We've strengthened executive governance with clear accountability at all levels. We've reaffirmed an automation-first strategy, reserving manual work for exceptions only, and we're enhancing change management, ensuring better field engagement and end-to-end planning. I'll close by saying that while the transition to DGIB is a major step forward, the challenges of Release 8 have underscored the need for strong governance, strategic alignment, and proactive risk management. We're committed to learning from this experience and ensuring our systems better serve veterans and their families. Thank you for your oversight and support, and I welcome your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Devlin. The written statement of Ms. Devlin will be entered into the hearing record. Mr. Park, you are now recognized for 5 minutes to deliver your testimony on behalf of Accenture Federal Services.
Chairman Barrett, Ranking Member Pappas, members of the Subcommittee on Economic Opportunity, thank you for inviting me to testify at today's hearing. I am Justin Park, Managing Director of Accenture Federal Services and a member of the Accenture Federal Leadership Team. I am the Program Manager of the Digital GI Bill engagement, leading the implementation and operations of Accenture Federal DGIB systems. I'm honored to be here today and to serve veterans and their families in my role on the DGIB program. Since 2021, through the work on DGIB, Accenture has supported VA's efforts to make it faster and easier for veterans to access and reliably receive education benefits. These education benefits enable veterans to take better care of themselves and their families and to pursue life-changing post-service goals and aspirations. The education benefits provided by VA have real impact. Compared with a high school diploma holder, a veteran with a college degree can earn an average of 84% more, that's 1.2 million more, over their lifetime. Since we met last year, we have delivered on our commitment to successfully replace VA's nearly 50-year-old BDN mainframe with our state-of-the-art cloud-based claims processing platform. This technology improves VA's operational resilience, and for the first time in GI Bill's 80-year history, has enabled fully automated processing of Chapter 33 eligibility and Chapter 35 claims. Through our DGIB automation efforts with VA, more than 55% of all education claims, that's all chapters, all claim types, are processed same day, the vast majority of these in seconds. To date, DGIB has processed over 16 million claims, delivering more than $43 billion in veteran benefits to 2.3 million unique beneficiaries. We understand and share the committee's concerns about the Chapter 35 claim backlog. Delayed payments are unacceptable. We recognize the significant impact on veterans and their families, and we have been working tirelessly with the VA to help reduce the backlog and quickly get payments into the hands of eligible beneficiaries. There have been inaccurate reports of a system glitch causing the Chapter 35 backlog. These reports are not true. The system is working as required. That said, there are many contributing factors to the backlog, but there are two key drivers. First, the number of unique Chapter 35 students increased by 19% year on year, increasing Veteran Claim Examiner, or VCE, workload. Second, per requirement, a requirement that VA decided in 2024, DGIB was designed to require a one-time manual validation or reconciliation of BDN mainframe data for all claimants migrated, and this takes VCE time. Since December 2024, and before the manual data reconciliation was required, DGIB successfully processed tens of thousands of non-Chapter 33 claims for new beneficiaries and millions of claims overall. Throughout this time, DGIB continued to work as required. When it was identified that VCEs were unable to keep up with the claim workload, we worked closely with VA to identify solutions that automate a portion of the manual data validation and reconciliation to decrease the backlog. To give you additional details, on September 23rd, VA completed and approved new requirements for this automation, and we developed the system enhancements shortly after. VA completed the user acceptance testing and approved the enhancements, and we deployed the new automation to production on November 15th. Since that deployment, we have automatically reconciled data for approximately 88,000 claims, greatly reducing the backlog. We remain focused on delivering on the promise made to veterans. With the mainframe retired, we have completed all required major technical modernization. VA finally has the technology platform in DGIB that allows it to take full advantage of these automations. Since the inception of DGIB in 2021, we have improved access to education benefits, and utilization has increased, with 42% more requests for eligibility, generating billions of dollars in economic activity and creating new jobs. We continue to work with VA to increase automation and deliver education benefits faster, easier, and more reliably, which is what our veterans have earned and deserve. Thank you. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Park. The written statement of Mr. Park will be entered into the hearing record, and we will now move on to questions from committee members, and we will each have 5 minutes in which to ask our questions. I will start by recognizing myself for 5 minutes. So I want to get kind of an idea, basically the timeline under which this takes place. The first step, as I understand it, is the certificate of eligibility. Is that correct? I guess any of you on the panel, I guess from the technical side, Mr. Park would be more familiar, but from the process side, perhaps the VA is.
That's correct. A certificate of eligibility establishes the eligibility to the program benefit.
And that's the very first step in this process?
It is.
And where was the manual step? Was it on the certificate of eligibility, or was it later in that process that it was determined to be a manual verification?
It was later in that process. It was converting claims that were previously processed in BDN over to the new system.
Okay, so would this be students who were previously enrolled, so not a brand new enrollment?
That's correct.
So a brand new enrollment would be automated through the new system from the beginning, but those that were continuation, following on another semester or just adding or reducing your class load would be done manually in that first tranche.
That's correct.
And who at VA, I understand this took place in 2024, that it was the decision made to do that manually, is that correct?
That's correct.
And who at VA made that decision?
I wasn't at VA at the time, so I can't say at which level the decision was made.
Okay. Mr. Park, were you in your position working this at that point?
I was in the position as the program manager. I was not in the rooms where the decision was made, but I am aware of the decision, yes.
Did Accenture offer advice or candor to VA as to the potential risk of making that a manual process and the delays that would likely follow?
Our position in general, as you heard from my testimony, is that we believe automation is the right answer whenever possible.
Right.
As you heard from VA, there is an automation first approach that is being taken going forward. At the time, as I understand from those discussions, there was a balance that VA was making between risks of mainframe data and the veteran claim examiner effort that would be needed. As I understand at the time in those rooms, the statement was made that the VCs could handle that workload.
Okay, that was the VA's position, that the
Correct.
the veteran claim examiners would have the capacity to be able to do that.
That is correct.
Did Accenture offer basically try and encourage the VA against that, or was it more they're the client and they get to make that decision?
There are healthy debates. There's no
Very diplomatic.
no right answer. In this case, obviously we don't run the mainframe, so we could not speak to the risk specifically. But as you've heard, this new leadership team understands the importance of automation, and I think if we were to go back and have that discussion, there would have been a different answer.
Okay, and then coming into 2025, VA has the existing protocol for the manual process that is set in place. At what point did it become apparent to VA that this was going to present a problem and the VCs were not in a position to be able to swiftly move through them as they had hoped when they made the decision?
I will ask Mr. Smith to speak to the timeline.
Thank you for the question. So the conversion happened on August 4th. Initially, our focus...
Of 2025, correct?
Of 2025. Initially, our focus was on the lack of that verification of enrollment, and that was the problem that we solved. By September, we were seeing or hearing anecdotal stories from claims processors that this reconciliation process was not taking minutes as originally anticipated, but rather hours. And we immediately started putting procedures in place to streamline and essentially trust the data that's coming out of our 50-year-old system that's been used to pay countless numbers of Chapter 35 students. And then we began to build an automation solution to try to get these claim R or reconciliations completed as quickly as possible.
So it was really around the time that students were re-enrolling in college. Now, these are all students who'd previously been enrolled, and they were just continuing their education. And it was at that moment that they were enrolling into the fall semester, and we get the surge of enrollment requests, that all took place.
That's correct. It was very much real time.
Okay, and VA didn't anticipate or do a dry run of how long it would take to process these manually to get an assessment of what that would look like and why that would be problematic?
I don't recall any sort of dry run on the claim-R process.
Okay.
We may have done some user acceptance testing on it, but
My time's expired anyway, but I will yield to the ranking member, and we can maybe pick it up on the next round. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I ask unanimous consent to be able to submit to the hearing record 3 letters that were sent by ranking members Takano, Blumenthal, Budzinski, and myself over the course of October, November, and December. Thank you. Ms. Devlin, VA has received these letters. Mr. Smith testified at our last hearing on December 2nd that Education Services passed up responses to these letters, at least to the first 2. Last night at 5:45, we received a letter in response that frankly didn't answer many of the core questions that were asked in these letters. I also know that the Secretary is well aware of the issue because Ranking Member Takano has spoken to him directly on a couple of occasions in October and November. So it would have been great to have the information that we requested in full before this hearing, and I find it hard to accept that anything other than the administration is deliberately ignoring our outreach and trying to either hide or avoid addressing this issue. The Secretary missed multiple deadlines to get us that information, and VA has also failed to communicate directly to beneficiaries and to the general public. So, Ms. Devlin, why is that? Were you or Mr. Smith directed not to talk to Congress and not to respond in writing to our requests?
No, sir. Thank you for the question. We were not directed, so.
Well, so what is responsible for the delay then?
We apologize for the delay. We did work on getting those responses, and I understand that they were delinquent, and we apologize for the delay.
So
I can't speak to the process delays that resulted in it taking so long, and I can only just share my apology for that.
So do you appreciate what we heard from Mr. Smith, that responses were being formulated and passed up? And
Yes.
is there a reason why this information wasn't communicated to Congress?
The process of developing a response involves detailed reviews of data because there were a lot of questions with those, and we needed to make sure the data was accurate. There were concurrence processes that went into place before the letter could be submitted.
I hope you can see the problem here.
I do.
Where we're totally in the dark on this, trying to find breadcrumbs, whether it's through VSOs or through veterans themselves that we represent that are reaching out to our offices, and we're just trying to get answers and get information. And I think we're owed that on behalf of the American people. So who is the approval authority to send out information to beneficiaries and to Congress, and why have they limited it so drastically in this instance?
It was not our intent to limit communication to veterans, other beneficiaries, or to Congress. We did provide some briefings to the 4 corners of the Hill, and we did send out some communications to students. Unfortunately, we didn't realize the magnitude of the problem and how significant it would be before the shutdown happened and during the lapse in
So
appropriations.
who makes the call on that, though?
We determine the content of the communications that need to go out to beneficiaries and to stakeholders. And then there is a departmental process for review and concurrence of those and issuing those communications.
So you can't give us a name or put a finer point on that, on who we should be talking to with respect to the lack of communication over 4 months?
I would say it's a joint effort between VBA. I'm the highest executive at VBA, so I would be the last person who sees anything before it goes out. And then again, at the department, there's review and approval processes.
I appreciate the position you're in, but someone's got to take responsibility for this, which is why we were asking for a Senate-confirmed appointee to be here at this hearing today. Now, you referenced the briefing. There was one that was scheduled for October 1st. It was canceled. And during the government shutdown, Congress received only form responses when trying to contact VA for information or to conduct casework for constituents suffering from some of the financial hardship that I referenced in my opening statement. So were you, VA Education Services, or VA's congressional liaisons directed not to communicate with Congress?
We were bound by requirements of what we can and cannot do during a lapse in appropriations, but I will say we took inquiries directly from beneficiaries, from VSOs, and from schools. I got emails directly, so did Mr. Smith, and when there was a financial concern, also through Ask VA, we were monitoring those, and if there was a financial emergency, we were handling that situation immediately and communicating with those beneficiaries.
So, and I have limited time here, but in terms of the plan of furloughing staff, who approved the plan and why was it out of line with the guidance that the White House had actually issued?
The contingency plan the VA had was in alignment with prior contingency plans for which types of work could be considered accepted and which types of work had to be furloughed.
And who had the signature authority required to bring back the user acceptance testing group from furlough, which was a key issue with respect to the digital GI benefit update?
We worked on that as something new that we hadn't dealt with before in VA and worked with our attorneys to get clearance on that process.
Well, I've got a number of additional questions. Again, incredibly frustrated with the way that Congress has been stonewalled here. We and the American people and the veteran community deserves answers, and I yield back.
Thank you, Ranking Member Pappas. Recognize Representative Hamadeh for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, we are here today because the VA has failed, plain and simple. The title of this hearing is, quote, Detrimental Delays, but let's call it for what it really is, a breach of contract with the men and women who served this country and the families who supported them. Now, I sit here as a veteran who knows firsthand how important these benefits are. Now, the GI Bill isn't a handout, it's earned. And for the survivors and dependents relying on Chapter 35, the families of our fallen and disabled, these delays aren't just an inconvenience, they are a crisis. And we're talking about students unable to register for classes, families missing rent payments, and veterans being left in the dark. And why? Because the Department of Veteran Affairs decided to process claims using old, dusty spreadsheets and fax machines. Now, we have spent nearly $1 billion on a contract with Accenture for the digital GI Bill. And we spent another $25 million to keep a 1970s legacy system on life support. And yet somehow the solution was to have case managers key files into ancient spreadsheets, one claim at a time. Now, that's just not incompetent and wasteful. It is an insult to every veteran in my district. Now, we hear a lot of excuses about complex processing and lapses in appropriations, but the reality is the VA kept a failed policy in place. Now, my first question is for you, Mr. Park. Now, the goal of this subcommittee is to ensure VA programs like the digital GI Bill tangibly improve the lives of veterans and their families. How much has Accenture been paid to date, and what have veterans and beneficiaries received for this?
Thank you for the question. We have been paid to date $686 million. And for that, we now have the majority of all veterans able to access their benefits to get this certificate of eligibility in seconds as opposed to weeks and in some cases months. That's a major change to the ability to get your benefits. That has driven an increase in utilization, as you heard in my oral testimony. This result is that we now have 16 million claims that have been processed and 43 billion in benefits that have been sent out, and that is for 2.3 million unique beneficiaries. You can, I'm sure, appreciate what that does for veterans and their families. And we did all this while addressing decades of legacy debt, not the least of which was this BDN mainframe, which, if it had failed, as you heard from the VA, due to various issues such as the fact it's past end of life, the fact that it could not be reasonably updated to comply with legislative and judicial mandates, and the fact that it could not be staffed any longer given how old the technology was, it would have created impact to veterans and disconnected them from their benefits. So we did all of those things while processing all of these claims that you've heard. There's plenty more that has been done for that amount, $686 million.
So how long was the system not being used for?
How long was the DGIB system?
Yes.
Throughout the entire execution of this contract, the DGIB system has been up and running. It's up 99.99% of the time, so there has been no interruption of service for the system itself.
But when did Accenture get paid?
We get paid on a monthly basis based on delivery on specific milestones, and that occurs monthly.
But you were getting paid when we weren't even using the system?
The system has been used every single day since we started in 2021.
And yet there is this backlog of over 100,000.
That is correct. As you heard, that is driven by two main factors. The increase in the Chapter 35 year-on-year of 19%, and also the decision to have VCEs manually process claims. When they process things manually, it is important to understand they're doing it inside the DGIB system. What changed on September 23rd is that we then had approved requirements to automate a portion of that processing so that the VCs would not need to do any manual processing.
Right. But it took a long time for it to actually get implemented, right? From 2024 all the way to August of 2025.
Yeah, I guess to help shed light, the DGIB itself had the capability of processing Chapter 35 in December of 2024. As a risk mitigation approach, that production capability was used for all new beneficiaries, but not, as you heard from other folks, the beneficiaries that were already in the mainframe. What occurred in July and then August was the migration of those older claim sets of data into DGIB, and then this reconciliation or validation of data.
I'm out of time. I yield back.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Hamday. Yields back. Ms. Ramirez is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman and Ranking Member, for holding today's hearing, and our witnesses for joining us today. As we think about the work that we do here in this committee, we know that education is one of those benefits that, as someone just mentioned, our veterans not just deserve, they've really earned it. And I've remained clear since my first day in Congress almost 3 years ago that delivering these benefits that veterans deserve has to be a top priority for all of us. So I gotta be honest with you, it's deeply alarming that we're here today to talk about the failures of the digital GI Bill. And let me tell you why. Let's look at the facts. Despite millions of dollars and ample opportunities for the digital GI Bill to be implemented smoothly and efficiently, a backlog remains and rollout continues to be a problem. We know that many veterans rely on their GI Bill benefits to remain housed and to access basic necessities, so any delay in receiving these funds could be really dire for them. And that is why it's deeply alarming that when Republicans shut the government down, 75,000 Chapter 35 claims were backlogged. And as of December 5th, it concerns me that the VA still has approximately 4,400 Chapter 35 claims to process from the fall 2025 semester. To me, that's unacceptable, and I want to ask a couple questions as follow-up. Ms. Devlin, survivors and dependents rely on education benefits for access to basic needs. When education benefits are not paid on time, veterans have these tough decisions they have to face, right? About where the money will come from. Will it be out of their rent money? Will it be out of their car payments? Will it be the grocery funds? So by September, VA knew reconciliation was taking 4 to 6 times longer than planned. Why has Congress not immediately been notified when VA knew payments would be delayed for survivors and dependents relying on this income to stay enrolled? Did the VA understand the financial harm the payment delays would cause?
Thank you for the question. We also were very concerned about the delays in payments. We did not understand the magnitude of what these delays would cause before the shutdown, but I will say we are caught up on the backlog, and we only have 28 as of yesterday, Chapter 35 claims that were received before December 12th. We have 400 that were received for the fall term in the last 7 days. So we are caught up with the fall term backlog. And I will say that in October, from October to November, we processed 56% more payments than the previous year, dispersing $238 million.
Well, Ms. Devlin, let me follow up on that. We weren't notified, and I think that's alarming. This is the body of oversight. We should have. And I appreciate you hearing you say that you're addressing this. It's not going to happen again. Do you believe it's acceptable, though, that during the government shutdown, affected beneficiaries had no call center? They had no answers and no response to congressional casework while still being told that they still had to pay their rent, They still had to cover tuition. They still had to cover childcare without their earned benefits. That's a really easy yes or no. Do you think it's acceptable?
We were
Yes or
following the
no?
VA's contingency plan. We followed the rule of law on that.
And so in that rule, there was no call center and no answers and no response to congressional casework. That's unacceptable. Mr. Smith, families were told their payments would not be delayed, and then they were. So, Mr. Smith, you've stated that you don't expect similar problems in the spring semester. What specifically has changed, and why should survivors trust that assurance now?
Thank you for the question. So, working with Accenture Partners, we've talked a little bit about the automation of the reconciliation process. We've already pre-reconciled more than 86,000 beneficiaries who may be returning in the spring, but were not enrolled in the fall. Add to that all the folks that will continue from fall into spring. All of those people are now automation eligible. Just yesterday, VA automated 3,500 of the 6,600 Chapter 35 claims that were completed. That's an automation rate of 54%. That's 54% on top of what our normal claims processors are doing. We are completing more claims at an unprecedented rate and delivering those benefits in a day now.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And I think that that is the goal and priority every single day. Look, January 20th will come before we know it. I don't want to see us go back to some Republican government shutdown where veterans are impacted. It's why this hearing is so important, ensuring that our veterans and their families are getting the access they need. And I look forward to following up with you in the new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ramirez. Next is Mr. Kennedy for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman, and thanks to you and the ranking member for hosting this today. Thank you all for being here. I represent the Buffalo-Niagara region, which is home to Western New York's VA healthcare system and one of only 2 post-9/11 GI Bill processing centers. For years, workforce shortages at both the Veterans Benefits Administration Regional Office and the Buffalo VA Medical Center have been severe and persistent, particularly in primary care, mental health, urology, gastroenterology, and endocrinology. I've seen how understaffing at the VA affects veterans and their families. It means longer wait times, delayed care, and real consequences for those who rely on these services. In August 2024, dozens of nurses gathered outside the Buffalo VA to protest pay disparities, excessive work hours, and the VA's hiring freeze. They warned that these severe staffing shortages jeopardize patient safety and undermine the VA's commitment to providing high-quality care for our nation's bravest. Those warnings were echoed weeks later when the VA's OIG September 2024 report titled Community Care Consult Delays Despite Staff Advocacy Efforts at the VA Western New York Healthcare System in Buffalo. The report found that staffing shortages in both administrative and clinical settings led to delayed consult and appointments, leaving our heroes without the care they need, including ones who were hospitalized and others who were tragically passed as a result. Despite those known challenges, conditions have continued to deteriorate at the hands of this administration. At the end of 2024, the VA reported 40,000 vacancies nationwide. Rather than filling those positions, including critical vacancies at the Buffalo VA, the Trump administration imposed a hiring freeze, dismissing approximately 2,400 employees between February 13th and February 2024 of this year. On March 4th, a leaked internal memo revealed plans to lay off more than 80,000 of the VA's 470,000 employees, returning staffing to pre-PACT Act levels. Although the VA later claimed a reverse course on July 7th of this year, that commitment has now been abandoned. This past Saturday, the VA announced plans to eliminate up to 35,000 healthcare jobs, including doctors, nurses, and critical support staff, 23,000 more than what the agency said just months ago. Instead of addressing the deficiencies, this administration is exacerbating them. Cutting 35,000 additional healthcare positions will also only deepen the VA's workforce crisis, worsening access to care for veterans in my district and across the country. For an administration that claims to be pro-service member and pro-veteran, reality is telling a very different story. You cannot claim to support veterans while cutting the dedicated staff who care for them. You cannot claim to support veterans while delaying their benefits. You cannot claim to support veterans while ignoring the concerns raised by members of this committee. I want to be clear about the human cost. As an occupational therapist myself, I know the consequences of understaffing. Quality of patient care declines, burnout rises, and providers leave, not because they don't care, but because the system becomes unsustainable. When that breakdown occurs at the VA, it's our veterans who are paying the price with their lives. As members of this committee, we're entrusted to upholding this nation's promise to our veterans, not weakening it. These cuts that the Trump administration is making betray that promise. They're short-sighted, they're un-American, and they're deeply disrespectful to both the veterans who served and the professionals dedicated to caring for them. I yield back.
Mr. Kenny yields back. Now recognize Ms. Baczynski for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Barrett and Ranking Member Pappas, for allowing me to join this hearing today. I really appreciate it. Our two subcommittees have performed oversight on the Digital GI Bill program together for several years. It's unfortunate that the program's relative success has been impaired by recent missed payments and a lack of communication by the department, which has been obviously discussed at the committee already today. Even more unfortunate is that IT hiccups and tech glitches have become the scapegoat when it appears that policy decisions and a lack of planning were actually to blame, issues that plague too many of VA's modernization efforts. It appears your next policy effort is to accelerate the automation approach, despite the initial choice to not automate due to integrity concerns with the data coming from BDN. I now hear that you are choosing to move to an automation-first strategy. Ms. Devlin, what work has your team done to ensure that this move is not an overcorrection and won't result in erroneous payments?
Thank you for the question. Our accuracy is very high with automation. Excuse me. And if automation first had been the strategy last year, we would not be having this conversation today. The accuracy of automation is currently at 96% for originals and 93% for supplementals. And errors don't necessarily mean an error in payment. A lot of times they're just technical errors that don't result in reduced or overpayment.
Okay. I find it very alarming that the VA did not notify Congress, as has been said, about these delays for over 3 months. And as far as I can tell, VA never officially notified beneficiaries or the VSOs. That lack of communication caused confusion, frustration, and further delays in benefits. And I just want to add my voice to what has been already expressed in this committee today, that sheer frustration over that lack of communication. This absolutely cannot be the norm when errors at the VA occur. I'm also concerned that the issues that led to these payment delays will not be fully resolved before veterans and their beneficiaries start classes in January. I urge our VA witnesses here today and the Secretary himself to get ahead of this and communicate with beneficiaries. Ms. Devlin, it's clear that VA's communication strategy failed veterans during this gap in benefits payment. How has VA assessed the impacts of these errors for the spring semester, and how has VA communicated to beneficiaries for potential delays?
Thank you for that question as well. And it is our practice and our philosophy to communicate early when we know there's going to be a problem. I mentioned earlier we didn't understand the magnitude of this problem and how it would affect our beneficiaries. For your question about the spring term, we automated 50% of those claims that we've received so far already in December. We have 997 pending for the spring, but of those, 875 were just received in the last 7 days. So I tell you with confidence, we are processing the spring term claims in a timely manner.
Mr. Park mentioned that back in 2024, that was when the decision was made to manually reconcile. And it was done with the understanding that VCUs had the capacity to take on this load. Ms. Devlin, how did the Deferred Resignation Program or the Voluntary Early Retirement Authority impact VCU's capacity to manually reconcile these claims?
Thank you, that's a great question. VBA had excluded claims processors from both the Deferred Resignation Program and from early retirement. So we did not have any individuals from that business line or any claims processors take those options.
Okay. Okay. Great, I yield back. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Bazinski. Yields back. Mr. McGarvey for 5 or less minutes so we can get out of here on time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it. Too many times up here, we use government speak and sterile language like payment delays. When back home at Louisville, you've got veterans, survivors, dependents who rely on these benefits that they have earned. They rely on them to pay tuition on time. They rely on them to have a roof over their head. The families, when these payments don't show up, they're not inconvenienced by a payment delay. They are completely blindsided because they've done everything right. This isn't just a technical glitch or a policy issue. It's a complete breakdown of trust. These survivors, these dependents, they applied on time. They checked their status. They waited. They did everything they were supposed to do, and the VA didn't tell them the truth about what was happening. These families were left in the dark. We were left in the dark. And if we can't trust the VA to be upfront when things go wrong, then how can we trust the VA to fix the problem? Because survivors in Louisville and across the country should never, ever have to wonder when they've done everything right, when they or their loved one has put on the uniform and served us, they should never have to wonder if their benefits that they've earned will arrive. They've already sacrificed enough. That's what this hearing is about. So, Ms. Devlin, you've said this wasn't a glitch, but a business decision. Why didn't the VA tell Congress and students and the people receiving these benefits up front that the claims would take longer? Why were they left in the dark until thousands had already missed payments?
Thank you for the question. When we know we have something that's going to impact beneficiaries, we do notify Congress. The challenge was with that business decision that was made in 2024 is that the estimates were that it would take seconds to manually reconcile these claims. But it didn't, in fact, take seconds. It took, in some cases, hours. As soon as we heard that, we immediately jumped into action to correct the matter. We didn't know the magnitude of the delays that would happen, otherwise we would have notified. We did do a briefing, a Four Corners briefing, but again, at that time, we didn't understand the magnitude of the effect on beneficiaries, which we also regret deeply because we understand the impact on these people's lives.
Why didn't you understand the magnitude of it?
Because when the decision was made last year, the estimates of time would be seconds, and we believed that we would be able to manage that. And we also implemented an IT solution to automate the reconciliation, but unfortunately there was a delay in implementing that automated solution, which we believed would correct the problem.
So who was held accountable for this incredible error and mistake?
I can't speak to who made those decisions last year. I wasn't there.
We would love to know. And looking ahead, look, we're upset. The family's impacted, again, blindsided, devastated by these decisions. But we have to look ahead too. What is the VA's plan to make sure the spring semester doesn't repeat this fall backlog? And will you commit to clear, timely communication with us, with the schools, and with the families if these problems come up again?
Thank you. Yes, I make that commitment to you to continue to do a better job of communicating more transparently with you, all of you on the subcommittee, and also with our beneficiaries. For the spring term, we automated 50% of the spring term enrollments that we've gotten already. And of the ones that we've received just in the last 7 days, well, we only have 997 pending, and of those, 875 were received just in the last 7 days. So we are timely on the spring already.
I'm glad you brought up automation because you've said automation is helping now, but until that number, I had that only about 13% of claims are processed that way. And if you're saying it's 50%, great, but when will these reconciliations be fully automated and when will they have proper human checks in place to make sure that the automation is doing what it needs to do?
Many of the reconciliations are already automated at this point in time. We've corrected that, and our accuracy right now is 96% for originals and 93% for supplementals. So we are processing the claims correctly. We are trusting the BDN data that's coming over, and we're finding it to be accurate.
Part of the problem here, and I know I've got short time for lots of reasons, part of the problem here is when you did this, right? It happened at the beginning of the semester when families are hit the hardest by this. What's your plan for scheduling future updates so families aren't blindsided in this way? And have you thought about the actual time in which you can do this?
Absolutely, and we generally would not time a release this big around that time frame. Unfortunately, the contract for the BDN was ending the end of the fiscal year, and to be honest, if we had to keep that system alive for another year, not only would it cost $25 million additional dollars, but the risk to students was even greater. We would be having a much different, it would be catastrophic if the BDN shut down.
I have a lot more questions, but I'm out of time, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And due to circumstances beyond the control of this committee, we are going to need to take a brief recess. For this panel, these witnesses, thank you. You are excused, and we will reconvene with our second panel. We have to take leave for a recess for a classified briefing scheduled for all members of the House. Therefore, the subcommittee will stand in recess, subject to the call of the chair. I expect to reconvene at 12:25 or as soon as possible. Thank you. All right, committee will come back to order. Our second panel, we will hear from the following witness, Ms. Ashlyn Haycock-Lohman, Director of Government of Legislative Affairs at Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors, also known as TAPS. I'd like to welcome the witness on our second panel to the witness table and ask you please stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Let the record, thank you, and let the record reflect that the witness has answered in the affirmative. Ma'am, you are now recognized for 5 minutes to deliver your testimony.
Chairman Barrett, Ranking Member Pappas, and distinguished committee members, the Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors is grateful for the opportunity to testify today on behalf of the 120,000 surviving families TAPS is honored to serve and the 168,000 Chapter 35 beneficiaries.
Can you move the microphone a little closer?
Yes. And the 168,000 Chapter 35 beneficiaries who received delayed payments for the fall semester. The recent delays and incomplete payments in the VA's Chapter 35 Survivors Independent Education Assistance Program are not just a technical failure. For surviving families, they represent a deeply personal setback at a time when they are already rebuilding their lives after profound loss. As a surviving child who previously utilized these benefits, I can say with certainty that when the payments do not arrive on time, it creates unnecessary stress and anxiety. When payments were delayed for me, that often meant hours on the phone and having to choose between attending classes or picking up extra shifts at the restaurant I waited tables at to make sure I could cover rent, food, and bills. This is not a choice any VA beneficiary should have to make, especially when the student did everything they were supposed to do. Chapter 35 is an education benefit created nearly 70 years ago under the War Orphans Education Assistance Act of 1956. Despite small improvements, the benefit is still only $15.74 per month. That is less than half of the Montgomery GI Bill and far below the post-9/11 GI Bill and Frye Scholarship. For students today, it barely makes a dent in the cost of tuition, let alone living expenses. Students using Chapter 35 are the dependents of 100% disabled veterans, those who died of service-connected causes, and families of those who died before 9/11, populations that already receive fewer benefits than their post-9/11 counterparts. While the VA has made progress automating Chapter 33 claims through the digital GI Bill, Chapter 35 was still being processed on COBOL, a system from 1959, until recently. When the VA finally moved towards automation in August 2025, the update triggered major technical failures. In September, the VA told Congress that around 900 students were affected. But by mid-October, over 75,000 Chapter 35 beneficiaries still had not received a single payment. In total, 168,000 fall semester beneficiary payments were delayed. TAPS only learned of the issue because families and schools contacted us, not because VA alerted the stakeholders. And while we understand that payments often arrive late, the volume of October inquiries this year was unlike anything we had seen since 2018. To date, the VA has not provided any briefings to the VSO community on what happened or how they plan to fix it. For surviving families, these benefits are not supplemental income. They are a lifeline, a bridge to stability, healing, and opportunity. When payments did not arrive, students missed tuition deadlines. Schools couldn't get information. Families borrowed money or went into debt. Some students dropped courses or delayed enrollment. This hardship is unacceptable for anyone, but especially for survivors who have already endured so much. This is also not the first time VA Education Services has struggled with major IT changes. In 2018, failures implementing the Forever GI Bill caused a backlog of more than 200,000 claims. Congress acted then to prevent students from being penalized by their schools, a law that helped many of the 168,000 Chapter 35 beneficiaries this year. But that law does not protect against eviction notices, repossession, or late fees. Being made whole eventually is not enough. The situation was made worse by the government shutdown. While the IT failure occurred in August, unrelated to the shutdown eliminated the very resources students needed to seek help. The GI Bill hotline was closed, communication staffs were furloughed, yet press releases continued even as 75,000 students were left completely in the dark. TAPS tried to submit hardship cases through established VA inboxes, but received only automated shutdown messages. Ultimately, we relied on the staff of this committee to help surviving families during a critical time, and we thank them sincerely. TAPS is committed to working with VA to ensure our surviving families receive their education benefits on time and ensure this never happens again, which is why we recommend VA implement the following. 1, make the GI Bill hotline an essential service during any future government shutdown. 2, designate all education claims processors as essential, just as other VBA processors are. 3 is to resume the monthly stakeholder calls so that updates, issues, and upcoming IT changes are communicated clearly and consistently. 4, to create an IT rollout plan that avoids the start of academic terms. And lastly, publicly share rigorous IT testing and rollout plans with the community. Our surviving families did everything right. They applied early, checked their status, and waited, but the system failed them. We must ensure it does not happen again. On behalf of our surviving families, TAPS appreciates the opportunity to testify today, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. The written statement of Ms. Haycock-Lohman will be entered into the record. Appreciate your testimony. With now, we will move on to questions, and I'll recognize myself for 5 minutes. Deeply appreciate your willingness to come and testify in front of the committee and share some of these examples and stories with us. I know you have quite a few folks that you've spoken to that have been deeply affected by this, and from our position on this committee, to the extent that we offer an apology for that, I want it to be heartfelt and sincere that we want to make sure that this doesn't happen again, and we want to work with you on that. I'm committed to working with the VA to re-engage that periodic outreach to our VSOs so that there is a flow of information back and forth where they can hear from you and you can hear from them and vice versa. Also, I've begun to think about potential policy changes that might be effective in helping to ease this, one of which was the certificate of eligibility. Instead of waiting until a student is about to enroll in college, which might be 10 or more years after they would become eligible due to the death of a parent or family member, why not furnish the certificate of eligibility upon the time that they're eligible? That way it's one less step in the process later on in trying to accumulate military records from 10 or 15 or more years prior to that, for example. So that is something that we're going to look at. I know that there was concerns of students that may have been dismissed from school because enough time had gone on. I think there's a 90-day window that they cannot take action against a student, and some of that may have, unfortunately gone beyond that threshold. Do you know of any institution that, that removed from enrollment a student that fell into this circumstance of not having payment authorized?
We heard of quite a few schools that threatened to do so. Our casework team is phenomenal and reached out directly to the schools, provided them with the law, provided them with all of the publicly available information, which is very little from VA, but really tried to work with them, as well as we work with a lot of private scholarship organizations to try and make sure that there was enough of a payment made for those students if the school was truly threatening that, to make sure that they weren't going to be dropped. But the stress and anxiety of that was something that was incredibly difficult.
So no schools that we know of and that you have heard of disenrolled or unenrolled a student during this. Not that that defends the delay, but we want to make sure that there aren't any schools that actually followed through on that, to the best of your knowledge.
Not that we know of, because we made sure those, working with other organizations to make sure those payments were at least made to prevent that from happening.
Okay, thank you. And then, do you know how many of the students within the TAPS program were affected by this specific delay?
We heard from several dozen cases that were true hardship, which we worked directly with your staff to establish. We heard from even larger numbers, more in the hundreds, potentially thousands, that were delayed, but didn't consider themselves true hardships, especially if they had other scholarships and things that were helping supplement at least the tuition piece.
Okay. And then we've heard that the Chapter 35 backlog has essentially been extinguished. Have you heard from any of your members that does not substantiate that claim?
Not at this time. Every case that we sent forward was paid fairly quickly, and we have not heard from anyone that they still have outstanding payments.
As of the last few weeks or so?
Correct.
Okay. And what, I guess you may have mentioned this in your testimony in an earlier question, but do you have any regular contact with the VA through your organization, or is that really just sort of halted?
Normally we do. We actually have a memorandum of understanding with the VA, and we've worked closely with Education Services in the past. The stakeholder meeting that I mentioned was held monthly for many years, but the last VA stakeholder meeting occurred in December of 2024. We were told in January that they were moving them to quarterly, and then the first 2 quarterly ones were canceled, and then everything has been removed from the calendar since.
Okay. And then have you heard for the upcoming semester, the January enrollment, obviously there are going to be individuals applying for either continuation of benefits or for new benefits that they would be enrolling in. Have you heard of any lengthy delays beyond, maybe a couple of weeks or so for these claims to get processed?
Not that we're aware of, but we also have not been briefed, and to my knowledge, schools have not been briefed on any possible delays or things that schools can be doing to better support students if there is a delay.
Okay, but you haven't heard from either schools or beneficiaries that you're affiliated with that have had lengthy delays for the January semester?
We generally wouldn't know until a payment doesn't arrive.
Okay,
because
so
the way
end of
VA
January.
pays, we wouldn't even generally know until February because VA pays in the rears. So
Okay.
January payments wouldn't arrive until February 1st.
Okay, thank you. I'll now recognize Ranking Member Pappas for 5 minutes.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ms. Haycock-Lohman, for joining us here at this hearing. We really appreciate your testimony. Now, VA had been calling this problem for months a technical glitch, but it really wasn't technical at all. It was a result of poor planning and management. And I'm just wondering if you can tell us more about the level of communication that you may have or have not had with VA to understand this challenge. And so did you receive direct communication from VA about this issue, or how did you learn about it?
We learned from students in schools. We started getting large numbers of outreach, and other VSOs were hearing similar things when we actually do have biweekly education calls within the VSO community to communicate the things we are hearing. And we all started hearing a lot of the same things. We were able to work through some back channels and start hearing, especially from committee staff, that they were hearing consistently that there was a bigger issue. But to date, we have not received any briefing or messaging from VA on the pathway forward.
Okay, so and as you said, no stakeholder meeting, no quarterly meeting, those haven't been happening, no direct communication. So you're piecing this together with your colleagues from other organizations and based on what you're hearing directly from your members?
Yes, as well as committee staff who were hearing the same thing and were getting more communication, at least than we were.
So like you, I've been hearing from people on this issue, from constituents who have been impacted by the failure to pay benefits on time. And I spoke to one of those stories in my opening statement. And so here I ask unanimous consent that the October 2025 report from the National Association of Veterans Program Administrators on the impact of missed payments and the government shutdown into the record, as it has direct quotes from beneficiaries and hardship and emotional stress that has been put on our veterans and beneficiaries. So, Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to put this report into the hearing record.
Without objection, sure.
Well, thanks. And so, Ms. Haycock-Lohman, what impact, you talked about your own personal experience with delayed benefits. What impact does 4 months of missed benefits have on someone?
Most Chapter 35 recipients are children. They are between the ages of 18 and 26. They are young adults. They don't have savings. They generally don't have other income or benefits coming in. So 4 months of no payments means 4 months of missed rent, 4 months of not making car payments, scrambling to pay for food, things like that these young adults should not be having to deal with. This is a pretty young community. They don't have that savings. They generally don't have credit. And it also opens them up to predatory actors, things like looking for payday lenders, title loans, emergency situations when you're that desperate to make sure you don't get evicted.
You made an important point. There are a lot of folks that are just not moving money between accounts to be able to deal with the lack of benefits being paid on time. And so you mentioned that people aren't necessarily whole, even if their benefits have been paid.
Correct.
Well, I appreciate that. And, can you talk about other ways that you think VA should be acting to address this? You gave us a list of things that you would hope VA could take under consideration, including making the hotline permanent, ensuring that that's always open for GI Bill beneficiaries, making sure that those stakeholders' calls get back online. So, what can we work with you on to ensure that VA is, taking steps that are going to help either prevent this from happening again, but also, making sure ultimately that people who have these tough cases and aren't getting their answers have some way of getting through the system?
A big piece of that is transparency and working with the VSO community. We are oftentimes talking to survivors, veterans, more closely and daily than the VA generally is. So we are hearing these stories, but we're also messaging to them. We put out newsletters. We have social media with large followings. We have ability to make sure this information is getting to the community that it needs to. When VA is sending out, they have not sent out really anything specific on this to date, but large, we have newsletters and things that are hitting the population that are actually read more closely than large things from VA that are in legalese, that they might not understand what exactly that VA email says, but the way we're able to word it, because we're not tied to those legal rules, makes it a little easier for survivors to understand. But if we don't know what's going on, we can't message that to our community.
Sure, certainly. And I think you probably heard the exchange that we had with VA officials on the first panel. Congress was kept in the dark on this. VSOs were kept in the dark. Beneficiaries were kept in the dark. That level of transparency, you think that would have helped individuals, even if they know their benefits were going to be late, just knowing what was going on and being able to plan would have been of some value to folks.
Absolutely, because they could have, we could have messaged this out to survivors. We could have worked more closely ahead of time with some of our partner scholarship organizations and the other programs out there that support survivors to make sure that, instead of this very scrambling of trying to make payments, that we were working with them and getting them into some of these other programs to help offset the immediate costs earlier instead of, waiting until it was too late because we didn't know what was happening.
Well, I thank you for your testimony today and answering those questions and for being patient with us too. This is an important issue, and we want to continue to engage with you. And you often help us understand how veterans are receiving information, how beneficiaries are encountering challenges with programs, and so your feedback is so critical. Thanks for being here. I yield back.
Very good. I want to thank our witness on the second panel and our witnesses earlier today for being here to discuss the ways that VA can resolve the issue of delayed payments and ensure that this problem doesn't happen again. And while Chairman Van Orden couldn't be here today, he takes these issues very seriously, and he conveyed that to me and to all of us on this committee. And this won't be our final hearing on the digital GI Bill this Congress. With that, I'm going to yield to, I want to dismiss our panel now and then yield to Ranking Member Pappas for any concluding remarks.
Well, thanks, Mr. Chairman, and I think this was an important hearing today. And what is clear is that the problem is not fully solved. We need to continue to dedicate more time to examining it, especially as we enter the spring 2026 school semester. People that we hear from the most, veterans, families, survivors themselves, need to have a larger voice, and I would like to receive testimony from more VSOs on how their members have been impacted. I also want to note that we were only discussing Chapter 35 benefits today. Our committee has received reports of delayed benefits in Chapter 31, VR&E, and Chapter 33, the post-9/11 GI Bill, during the fall 2025 school semester. So we must conduct rigorous bipartisan oversight to identify and address benefits payments issues in those programs as well. Finally, Mr. Chairman, I would like to have a follow-up hearing on these Chapter 35 delays when we get back from the holiday recess, where we have appointees of the President testifying. We as Congress must assert our Article I powers to conduct oversight and demand answers from those attempting to sweep failure under the rug. Those in charge must be held to account. With that, I would like to thank our witnesses for their flexibility, and I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ranking Member Pappas. And again, thank you to all of our witnesses who are here today. This won't be the last time we examine this issue, and we are going to really extract expectations from the VA around what is the appropriate amount of time under which an approval will take place. What is the target time that we are going to have? How are we going to hold to that standard? And what is the methodology that we're going to follow to get there? And as I said on the subcommittee in which I serve as chairman on the Technology and Modernization Subcommittee, there's quite a bit of overlap with this area of jurisdiction as well, and look forward to working with the members of this subcommittee in that effort, in that pursuit, as well as our folks at the VA that we will be working with as well. Thank you again to all of our witnesses. Thank you to the ranking member. And I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material. Without objection, so ordered. And with that, this hearing is adjourned.